Oscar Wilde's only novel is the dreamlike story of a young man who sells his soul for eternal youth and beauty. If you're a fan of this classic literature, then you'll love these 10 books like The Picture of Dorian Gray. Each book has its own unique story and characters that will keep you entertained from beginning to end. Before talking about those books, I want to share a short summary of The Picture of Dorian Gray with you. The Picture of Dorian Gray summary. Dorian is a good-natured young man until he discovers the power of his own exceptional beauty. As he gradually sinks deep into a frivolous, glamorous world of selfish luxury, he apparently remains physically unchanged by the stresses of his corrupt lifestyle and untouched by age. But up in his attic, hidden behind a curtain, his portrait tells a different story. Here I include 10 books similar to The Picture of Dorian Gray that are written by some great authors like Oscar Wilde. Frankenstein, by Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is a gothic horror novel about a man named Victor Frankenstein who discovers the secret to creating life. He uses this knowledge to form a hideous monster, which becomes the source of his misery and demise. The novel is presented as an epistolary nested narrative, following the first-person accounts of Captain Walton, Victor Frankenstein, and the monster himself. Jane Eyre, by Charlotte Bronte. Jane Eyre is not your typical romance. It is a story of a woman who struggles with a world in which she doesn't quite fit. She survives, but she wants more from life than simply to survive. She wants respect and love. When she goes to work for Mr. Rochester, she hopes she has found both at once. But the sound of strange laughter, late at night, behind a locked door, warns her that her troubles are only beginning. Wuthering Heights, by Emily Bronte. Wuthering Heights is a wild, passionate story of the intense and almost demonic love between Catherine Earnshaw and Heathcliff, a foundling adopted by Catherine's father. After Mr. Earnshaw's death, Heathcliff is bullied and humiliated by Catherine's brother Hindley, and wrongly believing that his love for Catherine is not reciprocated, leaves Wuthering Heights, only to return years later as a wealthy and polished man. He proceeds to exact a terrible revenge for his former miseries. The action of the story is chaotic and unremittingly violent, but the accomplished handling of a complex structure, the evocative descriptions of the lonely moorland setting, and the poetic grandeur of vision combine to make this unique novel a masterpiece of English literature. The Metamorphosis, by Franz Kafka. The Metamorphosis, first published in 1915, is the story of Gregor Samsa, a young traveling salesman who lives with his family and financially supports his parents and younger sister. One morning he awakes to discover that during the night he has been transformed into a horrible bug. Although somewhat of a horror genre, the story is often very funny as Gregor, his family, and those around him deal with their own transformations as a result of this odd predicament. The Little Prince, by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. It is a classic fable about a stranded pilot's encounter with a young prince who travels the universe in search of knowledge. After crash landing in the middle of the Sahara Desert, an unnamed pilot is surprised to come across a young, healthy-looking boy. He is surprised to learn that the boy is a prince of a small planet, and after leaving his planet he travels the galaxy meeting people on other planets. The prince relates tale after tale to the pilot on themes of loneliness, friendship, love, and loss. In the end, the boy returns to his planet, leaving his new friend with heartfelt memories of how children see the world. The Great Gatsby, by F. Scott Fitzgerald. J. Gatsby's quest to remake himself into a socialite feels unexpectedly familiar in an age when we curate the perfect version of our lives on social media. Honestly, The Great Gatsby couldn't feel more of the moment if Daisy Buchanan's last name were actually Kardashian. Pride and Prejudice, by Jane Austen. A classic of English literature, written with incisive wit and superb character delineation, it centers on the burgeoning relationship between Elizabeth Bennet, the daughter of a country gentleman, and Fitzwilliam Darcy, a rich aristocratic landowner. Upon publication, Pride and Prejudice was well received by critics and readers. The first edition sold out within the first year, and it never went out of print. The Catcher in the Rye, by J.D. Salinger. The Catcher in the Rye revolves around protagonist Holden Caulfield, who's recovering from a nervous breakdown in a sanitarium out west, giving him time to reflect on his tortured trip home to New York City after being expelled from Pensy Prep in Pennsylvania. It seems shocking when this mixed-up, foul-mouthed prep school reject became the hero of teens all around the world. But more than half a century later, Holden's radically authentic voice continues to entrance readers of all ages. By the time you finish reading this heartbreaking and hilarious story of disillusionment, Holden's collapse seems like the only sane reaction to this crappy and phony world we live in. The Old Man and the Sea, by Ernest Hemingway. The Old Man and the Sea was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 1953, and the year after, the Nobel Prize in Literature was awarded to Ernest Hemingway in 1954. It is the superbly told, tragic story of Santiago, an aging Cuban fisherman in the Gulf Stream and his struggles with a giant marlin far out in the Gulf Stream off the coast of Cuba. Fahrenheit 451, by Ray Bradbury. Guy Montag is a fireman. His job is to destroy the most illegal of commodities, the printed book, along with the houses in which they are hidden. Montag never questions the destruction and ruin his actions produce, returning each day to his bland life and wife, Mildred, who spends all day with her television family. But when he meets an eccentric young neighbor, Clarice, who introduces him to a past where people didn't live in fear and to a present where one sees the world through the ideas in books instead of the mindless chatter of television, Montag begins to question everything he has ever known. I hope that this video has given you some insight into why is to read these types of books, and I would love to know your opinions. If there are any other books that should have been included, let me know by commenting below.